everyone, welcome back to another Netflix's One Piece review! I'm gonna end off the series on one of my favorite arcs, probably of all of One Piece, but definitely of the East Blue, and that is Nami's arc. We last left off with Nami leaving the crew and revealing that she had always been on Arlong's crew? What's going on? So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the episode breakdown and I'll give you my thoughts as we go through it. We start off with Luffy and crew being aided by Buggy to guide them to Konomi Islands. And then we go into a brief flashback with Nami growing up, playing outside with her adopted sister and mother. Najiko has spent a little bit too much time in the sun, as you can probably tell. Netflix gonna Netflix. One of the pieces that they add during these flashbacks is the idea that Nami grew up on a tangerine grove, of course, and apparently one of the things that they would do with the tangerines is they would splice them up and put them on a stick to act as a propeller, which is kinda clever. That's not from the original, but it's super cute and it kinda fits with the theme. And when we're done the flashback, we see that Nami is in Arlong Park playing cards with another fisherman before Arlong calls for her. And as she walks through the park, we also see the body of Buggy, the rest of his body, hung up on one of those shooter carnival games, which I found to be kind of funny. That seems like something they would do with his body, yes. Continuing her flashback sequence, we see that Nami has stolen a book. Cartography book? Is that right? It's a book of maps. Her mom notes that she shouldn't have stolen, that's bad. Nami's like, I'm a communist, everything belongs to me because I'm poor. And this leads Nami into a rant about how she hates being poor and they're not a real family, but none of them are related to each other, which leads to the foster mother, of course, giving her a good smack. And that is what happened in the original series. I was a little bit surprised that they kept the slap in the Netflix adaptation because, Americans are a little bit more sensitive about adult on-child abuse. Later on, her foster mother comes to give her a little talk about their little spat. During this talk, she reveals to Nami how she found her and Najiko at the site of a war, showing Belle-mere as a Marine back in the day. They did age up Nami a little bit in this flashback. In the original series, Nami was actually a baby? Yeah, it's fine. Obviously, it's not a huge deal. Belle-mere herself, in the original One Piece series, I kind of saw as being a lot more rougher and tougher, and this kind of went alongside with her being a Marine, and she sort of softens up by raising two daughters, right? But in this version, she seems more wholesome, more tradwife-like, a little bit less rough and tough. It's not a big deal, but it's a little bit slightly different. It might be kind of shocking when you find out, wait, she was a Marine? She seems like such a trad wife, you know? Without the wife part, because I guess she's not married, but you know what I mean. Traditional stay-at-home mom. And once the flashback is done, we see Nami give the map to Arlong. I'm actually kind of surprised that she hadn't given the map to him already. And then Arlong gives her orders to go to Coco Village to collect their monthly fee for, keeping themselves alive from the fishermen controlling the island. And Nami reluctantly goes, knowing that Coco Village is already late on their payment. Meanwhile, Garp arrives at the Baratier to have a nice dinner with Zeph while discussing where Luffy has gone off to. And the Straw Hats arrive at Coco Village, where the villagers are doing their best to collect as much money as they can find and giving it to the mayor, who, of course, will be giving that payment to Nami. Unfortunately, the payment is not enough, but it's all that they have, and they're kind of hoping that it'll pass by Arlong. As Nami goes to collect the payment, Najiko kind of aggressively comes up to her, saying, you know, you have a lot of nerve showing up here, and then spitting on her shoes. And I gotta say, I know why Netflix decided to race swap Najiko, but did you have to personality swap her too? It's very aggressive. I get why, though. Don't get me wrong. So, in the Netflix version, the villagers don't know about Nami not actually being evil and actually having a plan to buy Coco Village from Arlong so that they can all be free and won't have to make these payments anymore. In the Netflix version, nobody knows. Like, nobody understands that Nami didn't just turn evil one day. So that's why Najiko is so openly aggressive towards her. She actually does genuinely hate Nami in this version, rather than just pretending to not understand that Nami is putting up a farce. I get why they decided to cut out that little plot twist of the villagers actually knowing, because it doesn't really change the plot at all. It just kind of changes your perspective watching it. It's not just Nami protecting the village, but in return the villagers were also trying to protect her. So as the mayor gives her their payment, Nami also flashes back to when she returned the book she stole to the mayor. And it's kind of a sweet scene where he's like, oh, you didn't have to steal it. You're not a bad kid. If you want something, but you don't have the money for it, we'll work something out. We'll find little tiny jobs for you to do around the village. It's cute. It's a nice scene. But unfortunately, the scene is cut short because this is the moment where the Arlong pirates had arrived to kill everybody at the village and get their payments set up. Back in the present day, Nami notes that their payment is short, and before she rushes off, Luffy, who had seen all this, confronts her, and she's basically just saying, oh, well, I didn't ask for you to come here for me. Get lost, losers. I'm with the Arlong pirates. I'm totally not good person. I'm totally evil. You should leave. And then that just ends the scene there. Now, because Luffy is not convinced, he wants to go visit Najiko to get more information about Nami. And of course, they're greeted by Najiko with a gun at her front door. Sanji is able to kind of sweet talk into getting her to let them inside for a nice chat. I do gotta point out though, they kind of keep the line where Sanji says, oh, it makes sense you're both sisters because you're both just as beautiful. And I'm not really sure if it works here. Not that the actress playing Najiko isn't pretty, but the reason why you would say something like that is because of a biological connection within sisters, saying that they're biologically both beautiful because they're related. And Sanji didn't really know that they were adopted sisters. Looking at Najiko in the Netflix series, it's very obvious that they are adopted sisters. So it's a little bit weird. I don't know if this was supposed to be a joke, if Netflix is doing a meta thing where they're like, haha, it's funny because he's lying about understanding that they're sisters. I don't know. Back at Arlong Park, one of the Marines goes to visit Arlong for their monthly bribe to cover his tracks. We go back to another flashback. So each of the Arlong pirates would break into a home and then ask for payment. 100,000 berries for adults to stay alive, 50,000 berries per child. And of course, since Belle-mere is poor, she only has 100,000 berries. So instead of using the payment for herself to live, she instead uses the payment for Najiko and Nami. And of course, we get the very heartfelt scene, Belle-mere saying goodbye to them both, saying that she loves them before Arlong blows her head off. And it is genuinely a well-done scene, a very sad scene. Najiko explains this to the Straw Hats, and her takeaway from this is, how could Nami work for a fishman who killed her own mother? You know, her own adopted foster mother who did everything to save Nami in that moment. How could she then turn coat? She must be evil. We also have a good scene of Luffy and Zoro talking on top of the roof. In this scene, Luffy kind of goes over that he doesn't want to hear about Nami from other people. He wants to hear it from her herself. And Zoro's like, well, how do you know that what Najiko's saying isn't really true? I mean, Nami herself told you that she wants you to leave, that she doesn't want to be part of the crew. And Luffy is telling him, you said the same thing. I knew that it wasn't true. I knew that you would be a part of my crew. I knew that Usopp would be a part of my crew. I knew Sanji would be a part of my crew. And I know that Nami is a crew member. I know that she needs help, and so we're gonna help her. And it's a nice scene. Very slow, very simple, but I enjoyed the extra scene of them talking it out like this. Going back to Arlong Park, Arlong is discussing business with the Marine who wants a bigger bribe. And essentially, Arlong is able to talk the Marine into just taking the normal bribe payment. How does he do this with his expert negotiating techniques, you may ask? Well, Arlong basically just accuses the Marine of being racist. And then the Marine just gets like so scared and uncomfortable that he's like, okay, I'll just take normal payment then. It's a little bit funny. We also get a Jinbei name drop. I appreciate it, but afterwards, Nami approaches Arlong, tells him, hey, by the way, I got the payment that you wanted for buying Coco Village. I'm ready to buy Coco Village. And Arlong's like, oh, cool, yeah, why don't you bring me that money? And she's like, yeah, awesome. Walks off. Then Arlong says, bring that Marine back here. I think I know another way he can get his payment. And you kinda get the idea from just that. Going back with Garp and friends, we see Kobe and Helmeppo having more bonding scenes, mostly just drinking together. After this, they get a little bit of word from the bartender where Luffy may be heading. We also get a scene where Garp is bonding with Zeph, having a nice friendly discussion, and ending it with Garp getting a little bit more serious, saying that he doesn't want Luffy to be a pirate because he's worried about where it'll lead him down the line. Kobe then goes to tell Garp that they know where Luffy is, and they say their goodbyes. Nami is going to collect her money for the payment of Coco Village. As it turns out, she buried the money beside Bellemere's grave, which is quite dark. I don't know if that's exactly where I would bury my money, but Najiko spots her while she's doing this and immediately assumes the worst and tries to kill Nami, tries to just fucking murder her before Nami can explain. Grabs the shovel, starts swinging it at her head, but misses, and then accidentally hits the chest where all the money spills out. We get a flashback. She joined the Arlong Pirates when she was a kid because she wanted to buy back Coco Village, and part of their deal was that she would draw maps for Arlong, and in exchange, she gets to buy the village from him so that it would no longer be under his control. But back in the present day, that Marine, that ratty Marine, comes back saying, oh, I believe all this money is stolen goods. I'm afraid we'll have to confiscate it. And to be fair, he's kind of right. They are stolen. It's stolen money. Nami freaks out, screams that Arlong is going to destroy the village because they were late on their payment. As she runs off, she finds herself alone in the middle of the Tangerine Grove, and in a fit of frustration, she grabs a knife and starts stabbing away at her Arlong pirate tattoo. It's very, very emotional. Basically, for the most part, a shot-for-shot remake of what it was in the original series. But once again, I gotta say, it's not as gory as it was in the original. As we've gotten further into the One Piece series, it seems to have gotten less gory. Netflix is, for some reason, very shy, because her arm in the manga, it was like all gashed up and bloody, but in this it's like little tiny itty bitty stab wounds. You know, not as impactful. Of course, Luffy stops her from continuing to stab herself. And she notes that, hey, I told you to leave. And he's like, yeah, you did. She breaks down, of course, builds up the courage to ask Luffy to help her. And then we get the nice scene of Luffy putting the straw hat on her head, turning away, saying, of course, I will help you. He walks back where all the other members of the Straw Hat crew are waiting for him. Excellent remade shot from the manga and from the anime. I love it. As they walk away to go fight Arlong, they notice that the village of Coco, the Coco village, is in fact burning in the distance. A little bit dark note to end on, but then we end part 1 of Nami's little saga here. If I am to do another nitpick, I've mentioned this before in other scenes, but once again, it's like camera's a little bit too zoomed in during this scene of Luffy and Nami, especially the placing of the hat on her head. It's just like, can you pull the camera back a bit, buddy? Just a little bit. For the most part, though, I've mostly been more complaining about the editing than I have about the actual shots themselves. Sometimes the camera is just a little bit too zoomed in. I feel a little bit claustrophobic. But overall, it was a pretty great episode. Very true to the original series. The most distracting change for me was honestly Najiko, but everything else was a-okay. And to be fair, Najiko would not have been nearly as distracting if they didn't draw that little extra attention to it with Sanji's line about, of course you're both sisters, because you're both so beautiful, you look so much alike. And it's like, no, they don't. They really don't look alike. But okay. So overall, what am I giving this episode? I really did like it. Yeah, I think overall I'm giving this episode another 9 out of 10. It was pretty a-okay, man. The next episode, episode 8, is actually where we end off the Netflix One Piece series. And that'll be our last review for a while, at least I guess until season 2 comes out. So I'll have kind of my final thoughts on the series as a whole in that next video. But let me know what you thought about this episode down below in the comments section. Like the video if you did enjoy, subscribe if you'd like to see that last conclusion finale episode review. And if you'd like to see more videos from me, I'll see you next time, guys. Till then, bye! Program restart.